Today we're diving into the work of S.C. Sayles, specifically the book VERITAS CONFIRMATA, subtitled The Logos-Centered Epistemology. Alright, so before we get into the heavy stuff, let's just pause for a second. Logos-centered epistemology, that's a phrase that might not roll off the tongue at your morning coffee, right? But stick around. This one's all about the architecture of reality, the soul, and the basic question of how we know anything at all. That's a big one, isn't it? So, who is S.C. Sayles? He's a philosopher theologian, someone who takes ancient metaphysics, reformed theology, modern cosmology, and tries to weave those together. Sayles, by the way, doesn't seek the limelight. He lets the work speak for itself, which I respect. Anyway, let's get to the actual question Sayles tackles in this book. At the heart of VERITAS CONFIRMATA is a pretty bold challenge. Is the world fundamentally material, or is its true foundation informational and structured according to meaning, according to the Logos? And what does that mean for us, for how we think and live and even hope? For Sayles, this isn't an idle philosophical musing. It's a kind of existential question. If reality is just particles bumping around, meaning is sort of, well, an add-on, an afterthought. But what if reality is, from the top down, meaningful? Why does this matter? Well, think about your daily life. When you reach for truth, justice, beauty, or even try to make sense of suffering, it kind of matters whether reality is ultimately random and silent, or structured and expressive, and, let's just say, intentional. If the world is meaningful, that shapes everything from physics to psychology to how you relate to your family. What are the core arguments Sayles makes in VERITAS CONFIRMATA? First off, he proposes that reality is not material, but informational. He argues that what looks solid and physical is really just patterns of information, made coherent by an underlying order, the Logos, a term loaded with philosophical and theological meaning. In Sayles' approach, information takes priority. Matter is, just the translation of pattern into form, under the conditions of our perception. So how does one get from information to meaning? Sayles argues that information always needs a context. It has to be embedded in something. That's something he calls the informational field. And here's the big move. Consciousness, or more precisely the soul, is our interface for perceiving and interpreting the field. Consciousness doesn't emerge out of the brain alone. It's aligned somehow with this deeper field. So our minds aren't, just electrical storms in our skulls, but participants in a grander relational reality. Here's a tangible way to put this. Sayles says you aren't just a brain in a universe of accidental dust. You're a center of consciousness, designed, in his terms, as a mirror of the Logos, able to not just exist, but to know, to yearn for, and to reflect meaning, your desire for meaning, beauty, justice, not just evolutionary leftovers. That's the posture Sayles takes. He's very explicit here. I want to highlight some of the methods or moves Sayles uses. He takes insights from both the sciences, like modern physics, which sees reality as fields and probabilities instead of tiny little billiard balls, and combines that with classical theology and biblical interpretation. There's a strong emphasis on the idea that to be is to be known. That is, reality is at its core revealed and relational, not mute and isolated. He very much resists the notion of neutral ground. Think of the universe not as a blank page, but as a meaningful script waiting to be read. So, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Sayles asks you to consider, are you navigating life as if meaning is just a lucky accident? And what does it do to your sense of self, responsibility, even hope, if the latter's true? Well, maybe nothing, or maybe everything, or somewhere in between. That's for you to decide. I'm not saying you need to become a philosopher, but Engaging with academic research like this, whether you're a physicist, a poet, or a barista, can make you wonder, you know? Maybe it nudges you to ask better questions about what you believe, how you act, what you value. That's the beauty, I think, of academic exploration. So, if you want to dig further, the work of S.C. Sayles, VERITAS, CONFIRMATA, the Logos-centered epistemology, is out there waiting.